I wasn't supposed to be home that early. It was one of those weird Fridays where everything just felt off. We'd had a fire drill at work that morning, then the power cut out around lunchtime and the IT guy, this kid barely old enough to shave, just threw up his hands and said, "Guess we're done for the day." Everyone cheered. I packed my bag, half smiling, already imagining crashing on the couch with a beer. I didn't text Lauren. I figured I'd surprise her. Maybe we'd order Thai, catch a movie, just enjoy each other like we used to. I pulled into the driveway around 4, still bright out, still quiet. Our house looked the same, white shutters, that rusted wind chimes still squeaking on the porch. But something felt off before I even turned the key in the door. You ever get that? That sense that you're walking into a room that isn't yours anymore? I stepped inside quietly. I always took my shoes off. Lauren hated footprints on the hardwood, and I eased the door shut, careful not to let the latch click. And then I heard it. Laughter. Not mine. Not from the TV. From the kitchen. Her laugh. I stopped. My backpack hung from one shoulder, frozen mid-step. I hadn't heard that sound in weeks. Maybe months. That particular kind of laugh, the one that starts in your chest and bursts out before you can even think to hide it. Then came his voice. Male. Confident. Smooth in that effortless kind of way. I didn't recognize it, but I didn't need to. I already knew what it meant. And yet, I still tiptoed forward like I was chasing a ghost. The hallway stretched longer than usual. Every step felt like I was walking into someone else's life. And he organizes his sock drawer like he's preparing for an audit, Lauren said, laughing again. No joke, he once labeled the compartments. I found a little sticky note that said dress, black, thin cotton. Like it was a library card. The man chuckled. You're kidding me. Nope, she replied, I married a spreadsheet. They laughed together. My throat tightened. I stood behind the corner where the hallway met the kitchen, staring at the reflection from the hallway mirror. Lauren stood there with a glass of wine in one hand, her other hand resting casually on the marble countertop. Her shoulders relaxed. Her eyes bright. She looked younger. Lighter. She looked happy. And then there was him. Tall, tan, with that business casual look, blue blazer, no tie, perfect stubble. He sat on a bar stool like he belonged there. Like he'd been there before. They were facing each other, angled in just enough to feel private. Too private. Close enough for secrets. I didn't breathe. I didn't make a sound. And then, as if on cue, Lauren's eyes flicked up toward the mirror and saw me. Her expression changed in a blink, laugh gone, posture stiffening. She put the glass down too fast and spilled a bit of wine on the counter. Kevin, she said, voice unnaturally chipper. Wow, you're home early. Jay, yeah, that's what she said. His name was turned slowly. He gave me this nod like he'd practiced it in a mirror. Hey man, he said. Man. Like we were college buddies catching up. I nodded. Couldn't speak. Didn't trust my voice. Lauren rushed over, all warmth and sudden explanations. Jay works with me. We're putting together the sponsorship portfolio for the charity gala next month. You know, the one I've been telling you about. She said it like we'd spoken about it a dozen times. Maybe we had. Maybe I'd nodded along while half asleep. Jay stood, still holding his wine. Just helping her brainstorm a few concepts. Nothing major. Yeah, Lauren added. I thought it'd be easier to hash it out here. It's quiet. Quiet. Sure. I glanced around. No presentation boards, no open laptops, no printouts. Just wine, appetizers, bruschetta, her favorite, and 2 people with way too much ease between them. Cool, I said finally. That was all I managed. One word. She picked up on my tone, she always could. You okay? I nodded. Just surprised. That's all. And for a second, the air between us felt like glass. Clear, thin, and seconds from shattering. Jay seemed to get the memo. He cleared his throat. I should head out anyway. We've got most of it done. Already? Lauren asked, her voice a bit too quick, too hopeful. He shrugged. Yeah. Traffic's gonna be bad soon anyway. He turned to me again. Nice meeting you, Kevin. I didn't answer. Just watched him walk out the front door like he knew the way by heart. Lauren lingered near the sink, back turned. She rinsed out her glass, twice, even though it was already clean. So, she started. That wasn't what it looked like. I raised an eyebrow. She laughed nervously. Seriously. He's just a colleague. He was helping me prep for the gala. That's all. I nodded slowly, forcing a breath out of my nose. Right? She looked at me then. Really looked. And for the first time in a long time, I saw something flicker in her expression, not guilt, exactly, but fear. Like a door she thought was locked had suddenly creaked open. You trust me, right? She asked, stepping closer. I met her eyes. They were tired. Just like mine. I did, I said. And just like that, something shifted. A silence settled between us, not loud, not angry, but heavy. Like two people realizing they're no longer reading from the same script. I walked past her and into the living room, dropping my bag by the couch. She didn't follow. That laugh, hers with him, kept playing in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. It wasn't the sound of cheating, maybe. But it wasn't the sound of love either. Not the kind we had. Or maybe the kind I thought we had. And that was the moment it started to fall apart. In the days that followed, everything looked the same. Our house, our routines, even the way Lauren said good morning with that half smile, but nothing felt the same. The laugh haunted me. Not just the sound of it, but the freedom in it. That uninhibited warmth she gave to someone else, a stranger to me. She hadn't laughed like that around me in months. Maybe longer. I'd just been too tired to notice. I kept telling myself maybe it was all in my head. But the mind doesn't easily let go of a fracture once it sees the first crack. Monday morning, she left early. Said she was heading to a team breakfast at her office downtown. Normally, she'd ask me if I wanted her to grab coffee on the way back. This time, she barely said goodbye. Just a kiss on the cheek that felt like someone clocking out for the day. I stared at the front door for a while after she left, like it owed me an explanation. When I got up to make coffee, I noticed something small. Her yoga mat was still rolled up in the corner of the mudroom. That wouldn't have meant anything except that last week she'd told me she was heading to yoga 3 times. Trying to get back into a routine, she said. But it hadn't moved. Still had a fine layer of dust on the straps. I touched it just to be sure. Nothing recent. I opened the closet next to it and saw her sneakers, the pair she always used for the studio, untouched. My stomach turned. Maybe she used another mat. Maybe she borrowed shoes. Or maybe she hadn't been going to yoga at all. I tried not to jump to conclusions. But doubt, once it creeps in, doesn't walk, it multiplies. Tuesday night, she had a corporate dinner. One of those things where spouses aren't invited because it's just too boring. I didn't argue. I just nodded and went back to pretending I cared about whatever show was playing in the background. She left in a sleek black dress. I remember thinking it looked a little too elegant for a corporate buffet. But I didn't say anything. I just watched her go, standing at the window until her taillights disappeared. That's when I started thinking back over the last few months. How many times had she gone out like this? How many nights had I fallen asleep on the couch waiting for her to come home? How often had I let those little alarms in my head get silenced by trust? Trust. That word started to feel like a punchline. The next day, I was working from home and needed a paperclip. Stupid, I know, but that's what sent me digging through the kitchen junk drawer. Pens, coupons, expired gum, and a silver lighter I'd never seen before. Heavy. Expensive looking. Engraved with the initials M.A. Neither of us smoked. Never had. I turned it over in my hand, feeling its weight, not just physically, but what it meant. I asked her about it later that night, casually. Hey, found a lighter in the drawer. You know anyone with the initials M.A.? She barely looked up from her phone. Oh, that must be Mike's. From the office. He lent it to me during that outdoor thing last month. I should give it back. She didn't sound surprised. Didn't even ask what it looked like. She just had an answer ready. It was too smooth. Too easy. And just like that, I realized how many of her answers had become like that lately, instant. Polished. Rehearsed. That weekend, she went shopping with Chloe from HR. When she came back, there were no bags. Not even a receipt sticking out of her purse. She said they just window shopped and caught up. The next day, I checked her car when she was in the shower. I wasn't proud of it. But the kind of man who listens to his wife laugh with another man from the shadows doesn't care much about pride anymore. Nothing in the trunk. No new makeup in the glove box. No coffee cup with Chloe's name on it. Just the faint scent of cologne I didn't recognize, earthy, a little musky. Not mine. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she breathed softly beside me, completely unaware, or maybe not, of the chaos playing out in my head. On Thursday, her phone lit up while we were eating dinner. She was stirring pasta, walking back and forth between the stove and the island when I saw the notification glow. It was brief. Just a name, Jay. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. Jay. The guy from the kitchen. I asked casually, hey, that guy from the other day, Jay, right? What department is he in? She paused for half a second. Oh. He's in branding. New team. We barely work together, really. Just crossed paths on the gala stuff. I nodded. Seems friendly. She smiled. Yeah. I guess. He's a talker. And just like that, the conversation drifted back to whatever shallow thing we were talking about before. But something inside me dug its heels in. Like a weight had been dropped inside my chest and wouldn't budge. It wasn't jealousy. It was intuition. That same instinct you feel when you realize the dog's been too quiet or the engine's making a noise it shouldn't. That creeping suspicion that grows with every ignored red flag until it finally demands your attention. By Saturday, I stopped pretending things were fine. We were walking through a farmer's market, one of those couples rituals we use to enjoy. Lauren was texting most of the time. Every now and then she'd hold up a jar of organic something and smile, but her eyes were somewhere else. We passed a booth selling homemade leather journals. She used to love those. But she barely glanced at them now. I asked, "Everything okay?" She looked up. "What?" "Yeah. Why?" "You seem distracted." She forced a smile. "Just tired." She said that a lot these days. Tired. It had become her favorite excuse. But the truth was, it wasn't just that she was tired. It was that she was tired of me. Of us. Of the life we'd built and the roles we'd fallen into. That night, while she slept, I pulled out an old photo album from the closet. The one with our trip to Oregon, the anniversary at the lake house, the goofy snapsh *TS of us painting the guest room a color we both regretted but pretended to love. She looked so happy in those pictures. So present. And I looked like a man who hadn't yet learned to question laughter. I stared at those photos until my eyes burned. Then I put them back, carefully, like a fragile thing I wasn't ready to let go of. But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't a phase. This was a pattern. And it was leading somewhere I wasn't sure I was ready to follow. It was a Wednesday night. One of those dull, humid ones where even the breeze feels tired. Lauren was in the shower, humming some tune I didn't recognize, something soft, upbeat. I sat on the edge of the bed, flipping through emails on my laptop, trying not to notice the glow of her phone lighting up on the nightstand. I hadn't planned on looking. I told myself I wouldn't. That I'd never be that guy snooping, spying, turning paranoia into a hobby. But there's a certain point where curiosity isn't curiosity anymore. It's survival. The phone buzzed again. Then again. The screen lit up with a preview of a voice message. From Jay. No last name. No emoji. Just Jay. I didn't even think. I picked it up. Just a thumb tap, messages, audio, play. I held the phone close. Heard a soft laugh. Then him. "Hey. I can't stop thinking about earlier. You always make it impossible to focus. I know I said I'd wait until the weekend, but I miss you. Call me when you can. I want to hear your voice." That was it. Maybe 10 seconds long. But that was all it took. I froze. The walls didn't collapse. There was no dramatic thunderclap. Just silence. That brutal, numbing silence that fills your head when every suspicion you've tried to dismiss turns out to be true. He missed her. He wanted her voice. Earlier. Earlier. I looked toward the bathroom. The water was still running. Steam crept beneath the door like smoke from a controlled burn. I set the phone down exactly how I found it. Screen down. Volume off. And then I sat there. Just sat. I don't know how long. Could have been 5 minutes or 50. All I remember was the hum of the bathroom fan and the echo of Jay's voice, casual and in asterisk mate, threading itself into my bloodstream. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw her phone against the wall like some movie scene. Instead, I stared at the carpet. Noticed how worn it had become around the bedposts. How we talked about replacing it for 3 years and never followed through. Like so many things. She came out 10 minutes later, towel wrapped around her hair, humming softly. "Hey," she said, casual, drying her arms. "Still up?" I looked up and smiled. "Yeah. Just checking email." She didn't notice anything. Just walked over to her side of the bed, picked up her phone, checked it like she always did. Her thumbs moved fast, unlock, scroll, read, reply. Maybe she was replying to Jay. Maybe she was deleting him. Maybe she was pretending to read an article while her pulse skipped like mine just had. I'll never know. But she climbed into bed, kissed my cheek, turned away, and fell asleep within minutes. Or pretended to. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, trying to figure out when I'd stopped being part of her world and started becoming an obstacle in it. The next day, I took off work, told my manager I was sick, and I was just not in the way he thought. I spent most of the day thinking about how I'd gotten here, how the guy who once stayed up late hand-painting signs for her birthday party now couldn't even ask who she was texting. That afternoon, I opened her laptop. I knew her password. She never changed it. It was our anniversary date, spelled out. Cute, right? Wrong. It opened like a door swinging into someone else's life. I wasn't looking for specifics. Not at first. Just some sign that the message from Jay was a one-time thing. A mistake. A lapse in judgment. Instead, I found a folder in her email titled Event Planning Gala. Within it, dozens of threads. Some with Jay. Some with someone named M. Some just to herself, drafts of messages she never sent. One stuck out. Subject: Replay. I clicked it. It was blank, but the draft history showed earlier versions. One line from a deleted paragraph hit me like a freight train. I can't keep pretending Kevin's enough. You make me feel like I'm real again. That was it. No timestamp. No date. Just that one sentence. She wrote it, then deleted it. But it was still there. In the history. Buried but not gone. I sat back and stared at the screen. Noticed how still everything around me had become. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. Felt like a movie set. The kind where the paint looks real from a distance, but when you get close enough, you see the cardboard behind the windows. That night, I made a decision. I printed everything. Emails. *TS of messages. The audio from Jay, I transferred it to a flash drive. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Not yet. But I knew I needed it. Not for revenge. Not for leverage. Just for proof. Because there's a kind of betrayal that cuts so deep, you start questioning your own memory. Your own sanity. I needed something physical. Something undeniable. I needed to know I wasn't imagining this. That I hadn't just become paranoid. That I wasn't losing it. I hid the files in a folder labeled Taxes 2023 on my laptop and backed them up onto a separate drive I kept in the garage. I deleted my browser history, covered my tracks. By the time Lauren got home, I was making dinner. She kissed me on the neck, commented on how nice the place smelled, and poured herself a glass of wine. "What's the occasion?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "No occasion," I said. "Just wanted a quiet night." She smiled and sipped her wine. "You're sweet." Sweet. The word landed like an insult. She talked about work. About how the gala planning was getting hectic. How Jay had moved to another project. "Thank God," she said, rolling her eyes. "Guy's exhausting." I nodded, playing the part. Letting her lie to me while I spooned pasta onto her plate. She took a bite, closed her eyes, moaned slightly. "This is amazing." I watched her, and something inside me shifted. Not hate, not rage, just vacancy. Like I had left the room, even though I was still sitting right there. After dinner, she curled up on the couch and fell asleep halfway through a movie. I stayed awake, staring at the TV, but not watching. Listening to her breathing again. It sounded the same as the night before. But now I knew better. Now I had proof. And nothing would ever be the same again. Once you know, really know something's broken, you stop trying to fix it. That's what happened to me in the days after I found the proof. Something inside went cold, not angry cold, but controlled, measured, strategic. There was no fight, no shouting, no slamming doors or midnight accusations. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask for explanations. I didn't want lies dressed up as apologies. Instead, I started preparing. Quietly, carefully. The first thing I did was back up everything. Twice. Her text with Jay, the audio message, the email drafts, even the lighter I'd found weeks ago with MA, engraved on the side. I took a photo of it against our granite countertop and saved it to a private cloud account I created that same morning under an old college alias. I started keeping a log, dates, times, observations. I noted when she said she was at yoga, and I'd casually check her car later that night. The mat was still dusty. Her gym shoes hadn't moved. She hadn't even re-downloaded the app she used to use to track her workouts. I documented everything, and I told no one. I didn't want advice. I didn't want someone trying to sway me with moral grandstanding or maybe there's a good reason nonsense. I wanted clarity. I wanted my next move to be precise, unemotional, calculated. Lauren went about her days like nothing had changed. She'd kiss me goodbye in the mornings, text me around noon with some bland office update, come home smiling and tired. Occasionally, she'd complain about how busy things were getting at work, so many meetings, she'd sigh, rubbing her neck. She'd stopped calling me babe. I didn't notice it until it had been weeks. Now it was just hey or Kev. Sometimes nothing at all. The ** Macy was gone. But she still played the role. Still cooked on Sundays. Still asked how my projects were going. Still suggested we book a fall getaway, maybe reconnect a little. The irony nearly choked me. I began securing our finances. Quietly shifting money into a separate account under my name. I got a post office box and redirected important mail, legal, banking, insurance. I didn't want surprises down the line. I even found a lawyer. A friend of a friend who specialized in marital law. We met in a coffee shop across town, away from anyone who might recognize me. You've already done more prep than most, he said, after reviewing the file I'd handed him, my private collection of heartbreak and data. I just nodded. I want this clean, I told him. No screaming matches. No courtroom drama. Just clarity. He nodded. That's doable. You've got solid evidence. When you're ready, we'll file. I wasn't ready yet. Not because I doubted my decision, but because I needed to see this thing through. I needed to know who she'd become. And I got my answer 2 weeks later. She handed me a small black box on a Thursday evening. No occasion. No warning. Got you something, she said, smiling like nothing was wrong. I opened it. Inside was a deep blue silk tie. Elegant. Expensive. Not my usual style. For the gala, she said. The theme's navy and silver. I thought it'd go well with your suit. I looked at the tie, then at her. 2 days earlier, I'd seen a receipt in her purse from a high-end men's boutique, 2 items. One was this tie. The other, I assumed, belonged to J. Or M.A. Or whoever was playing dress-up in my spot these days. I forced a smile. It's perfect. She beamed, leaned in, and kissed me. Softly. Briefly. I kissed her back. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. She wasn't just hiding things from me. She was managing me. Positioning me like a chess piece. Dressing me up, literally, to keep up appearances for whatever event she needed me to attend. She didn't want a husband. She wanted a prop. I started paying attention to her calendar, the one she left on the kitchen desk. Subtle notes: J, confirm menu, M.A, rehearsal schedule, K, seating chart. K, that was me. I was a variable now. A placeholder. At night, I'd lie next to her and study the way she breathed. The way she clutched her phone before falling asleep. How she never let it charge on the nightstand anymore. Always face down. Always quiet. Once I waited until she was in the shower and opened it again, just for a second. Her messages were clean. Sterile. Nothing incriminating. But when I checked her deleted folder, there it was. A selfie she'd sent, face half hidden by a scarf. Caption: miss you already. No name attached. Just a timestamp, 1 hour after she told me she was too tired to talk. I didn't react. I just filed it away, added it to the folder, and walked into the kitchen to make dinner like everything was normal. At work, I started staying late. Not because I had to, but because being home started to feel like performing in a play I didn't audition for. My coworkers noticed I was quieter. Focused. You all right, man? They'd ask, handing me reports or coffee. Yeah, I'd say. Just busy. That was true. Emotionally, mentally, I was preparing for a storm. And it finally arrived the night of the gala. She spent hours getting ready. Hair curled just right, lips lined perfectly, silver earrings that sparkled like they belonged to someone who had no reason to lie. You look amazing, I told her. She smiled, and for a second I almost believed she was still the woman I married. We drove to the venue together. Her playlist filled the silence. She sang along softly, tapping her fingers against her dress. At the gala, everything was immaculate. Gold lighting, clinking glasses, murmurs of laughter from expensive mouths. I walked beside her, hand in hand, as she greeted colleagues, donors, executives. She introduced me with ease. This is Kevin, my husband. I shook hands, nodded, smiled. Her grip tightened once when I almost said too little. I played the role. Perfectly. Then I saw him. Across the room. Navy suit. Matching tie. Perfect stubble. Jay. He was talking to another guest, but his eyes caught mine for half a second. Recognition. He looked away. So did I. Lauren led me to the silent auction, made jokes about how much she'd bid on a wine-tasting getaway. Her laugh sounded real to everyone around us. But to me, it was hollow. Scripted. She excused herself to the restroom an hour in. Said she'd be just a sec. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. When she came back, she smelled different. Faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. She slipped her arm through mine and whispered, "Thanks for doing this with me. It means a lot." I nodded. But I knew. I'd seen everything I needed to see. She didn't just betray me. She trained herself to look me in the eye while doing it. And that was the final confirmation. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a phase. It was a choice. And I was finally ready to make mine. It was almost midnight when the gala finally wound down, but the energy in the room was still pulsing like an overworked heart. Laughter echoed off the ballroom walls, polished shoes clicked across the marble floor, and champagne flutes clinked to polite toasts from people who probably couldn't remember what they were celebrating. Lauren was in her element. She glided from conversation to conversation like someone rehearsing for a performance she'd already mastered. Smiles, laughter, perfectly timed nods. Her hand stayed in the crook of my elbow when eyes were on us, but as soon as attention shifted elsewhere, she let go. She didn't even realize she was doing it anymore. And neither did they. To them, we were perfect. Stylish. Successful. The kind of couple you see in commercials, handsome husband, radiant wife, dressed to impress, faking it all just well enough to be believed. But I wasn't watching her anymore. I was watching him. Jay. He lingered at the edge of the ballroom, near the bar. Laughing with a woman in a red dress, sipping something dark and expensive looking. But every so often he looked toward Lauren. Just a glance. A twitch of recognition. A pull. And each time her head would turn a beat later. Casual. Almost coincidental. But I caught everyone. I stood by the silent auction table, pretending to admire a framed photo of a vineyard in Napa while I watched the game unfold. She was triangulating. Moving through the room like a ghost with coordinates. Always keeping Jay within sight, never directly, but never too far either. At one point, she disappeared entirely. It wasn't long, maybe 5 minutes. But when she returned, she came in from the side hallway, not the bathroom corridor. Jay reappeared shortly after. Shirt slightly wrinkled. Tie loosened. They didn't enter together, but they may as well have. I knew what had happened. I didn't need footage. I didn't need audio. I didn't need her to say it. It was written all over them. The confidence. The calm. The aftermath. That's when something inside me, something that had been splintered for weeks, finally broke free. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. I wasn't part of her world anymore. I was set dressing. A convenience. She needed me for the story, for the image, for the applause. But I wasn't a husband. I was a placeholder. We left a little after 1. She thanked everyone, kissed cheeks, waved goodbye with the same actress-perfect grin. She was buzzed but controlled. Still in character. Did you have fun? She asked in the car, buckling her seatbelt with a click that sounded louder than it should have. I started the engine. Sure. She smiled at the windshield. You were great tonight. Thank you for doing that. Doing what? I wanted to ask. Pretending I didn't know? Letting you use me like a prop in your grown-up pageant? But I just nodded. The ride home was quiet. She scrolled her phone with one hand, the blue light flickering across her face like moonlight through broken blinds. She looked peaceful. Detached. Like she was already somewhere else. When we pulled into the driveway, she rested a hand on my thigh and leaned in. Let's get some sleep, she whispered. It's been a long night. I followed her inside. She kicked off her heels at the door, unzipped her dress in one smooth motion, and stepped out of it without looking back. It puddled on the floor behind her like a costume she no longer needed. In the bedroom, she slipped into a t-shirt, one of mine, and crawled into bed. Night, she mumbled, already half asleep. I stood there for a moment, watching her under the soft glow of the bedside lamp. Then I turned off the light, grabbed a blanket from the hallway closet, and walked to the guest room. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing while the weight of the night crushed the air out of my chest. The next morning, I was gone before she woke. I drove with no destination in mind. Just the road and the sound of tires against asphalt. I left my phone in the glove box. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't want to see her name light up my screen. I wanted distance. I ended up on a coastal road about an hour away. Pulled over at a scenic overlook and just sat there. The ocean below, churning and dark. The wind loud enough to drown out everything inside my head. I stayed there for hours. Didn't move. Didn't cry. Just existed. When I finally returned, the sun was already dipping below the horizon. The house was dark. Her car was in the driveway. She was home. I parked on the curb. Walked up the path. Opened the door slowly. She was standing in the hallway, key still in hand, eyes wide like a deer caught mid-step. Kevin, she breathed. Where were you? I've been calling. I walked past her. Didn't speak. Didn't look back. Went straight to the bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag, and began packing. Essentials only. The rest didn't matter. Wait, what are you doing? She asked, stepping into the room. I didn't answer. Kev, she said, voice cracking. Talk to me. I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and moved past her again. She grabbed my arm. Please. I stopped. Turned to her slowly. No more, I said. I'm done. Her face paled. Done? What are you talking about? Where are you going? I shook my head. Don't insult us both by pretending you don't know. Tears welled up in her eyes. Please just talk to me. If something's wrong. Everything's wrong, I said, my voice low and steady. But I'm not fixing it for you anymore. I walked to the door. Opened it. Paused. She was standing in the hallway, arms wrapped around herself like a child. I loved you, I said. Then I stepped outside. And shut the door behind me. I didn't have a plan. Just a bag, a car, and a silence inside me that didn't ask for directions. I drove. First aimlessly. Then west. Then just away. I stopped answering calls after the third ring. By the fourth, I blocked her number. I couldn't hear her voice, not the version of it that still knew how to cry on command. I stayed off highways, choosing back roads and slow streets, the kind that felt like they didn't lead anywhere important. At some point near midnight, I pulled into a 24-hour diner. The kind with tired waitresses and bad coffee that somehow tastes exactly like you need it to. I sat at a booth in the corner. Didn't order food. Just let the coffee refill itself as I stared out into the empty parking lot. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then another. Then silence. Finally. That night, I slept in my car. The passenger seat reclined just enough, a jacket folded under my head. I dreamed about nothing. Woke up to the sound of birds and a layer of condensation on the windshield. I didn't go back. I didn't even think about going back. By sunrise, I was parked outside my brother's place. He didn't ask questions. Just opened the door, saw my face and said, "You can stay as long as you need." I exhaled for the first time in days. His guest room smelled like cedar and old coffee. It wasn't much, just a mattress on a wood frame and a window that creaked when the wind picked up, but it was mine. For now. Lauren kept trying. She found new numbers. Emails. Social media accounts I forgot we still had connected. Messages came in waves, first confusion, then concern, then apologies, then anger, then begging. I read the first few. Then I stopped. I didn't delete them. I wanted them to exist somewhere. Proof that she'd finally started to feel what I'd been drowning in. Back at her office, something shifted. I don't know how, but word got around. Maybe someone saw something at the gala. Maybe Jay had a bigger mouth than she realized. Whatever it was, I heard through mutual friends, whispers were turning into questions. Reviews were being held. She was under scrutiny. But I didn't care. I wasn't there to see it unravel. I had my own rebuilding to do. I found a local contracting job, nothing fancy, just hands-on work with guys who didn't care what I'd left behind. I started running again in the mornings. I stopped checking my phone before bed. I cooked my own meals. And slowly, I felt pieces of myself return. It wasn't joy, not yet. But it was something better than numb. Weeks later, I wandered into a small library downtown. I wasn't looking for anything, just quiet. I sat in a corner, flipped through books I'd never read, and somehow I ended up in a conversation with the woman beside me. Nothing flirty. Just human. Present. She asked if I came there often. I said no. She smiled like that was a good answer. We talked for an hour. Not about the past. Not about the hurt. Just about music. And coffee. And stories. I left with a name and a number, but no expectations. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because I had someone new, but because I had me again.